Hello, everybody, and welcome to Let's Talk Lockdown. My name is Leo. I'm from the UK Ministers Association. I'm going to go around and just allow our different guests to introduce themselves. Okay, so shall we start with the gentleman on the right, Mr. Chris Lee?
Hiya. Yes, I've been involved in sheds 7 or 8 years now. Helped set up the repair shed down in Hemel Hempstead. I have arm's length contact with it now, but after 3 years, I let the ship sail, and it's doing very well, thank you. So I'm in touch with shed members, but mainly at arm's length. And I'm a trustee of UK Men's Sheds because I wanted to put back what I got out when I was setting up the repair shed. And my day job is 3 days a week working with long-term unemployed people. So there's potentially quite an overlap between supporting people who are isolated and out of work and people who might be in a shed situation. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. I'm going to introduce our next guest, Jacky.
Hello. Yes, I work for Humber and Wells Rural Action, based in North Lincolnshire, and I have been involved in supporting men's sheds projects for the last couple of years. And I got involved for a start by working with a group of guys in a place called Winston in North Lincolnshire to start their shed, and then we developed further sheds in the East Riding, and now I'm involved in an alliance of sheds which includes 11 sheds across the Humber area.
Brilliant, thank you for that nice little introduction. Who's this face? You may recognize this gentleman.
Thanks, Leo, for having me on. I'm Patrick. I helped set up the Froome shed about 6 or 7 years ago. I also spent time as a Men's Shed Association administrator, taking calls that I think John Petrie is now doing. I'm also a UK Men's Shed Association ambassador, so I get to talk to all kinds of sheds everywhere, which is great.
Brilliant, thanks for that. Another familiar face for you, Kate, whose mic is off at the minute. Oh, go on.
Yeah, I was just muting myself because my dogs are going berserk. So my name's Kate. I'm sure many of you recognise me from Shedfest, and I'm also supporting Patrick in the Shed Happens show, which is going to be starting again from next week. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But yes, generally my role is about looking after or supporting the development of the Men's Shed Ambassador Programme, of which Patrick is one of those down in Somerset. So yeah, somebody called me an ambassador handler once, which I'm not sure is quite the right word.
Brilliant, thank you for that, Kate. And I am Leo, and I'm the Digital Communications Officer here at UK Men's Sheds Association. You probably won't hear a lot from me until maybe at the very end, or little promptings here and there, because I'm trying to keep up with comments and other things. Just to kick things off by saying, everybody, welcome to Let's Talk Lockdown. Today is the first day in England, at least, of the hard lockdown. And we're trying to be responsive and just really react in a timely fashion to some of the things that are going on. But because we're UK Men's Sheds, we also want to take into account what's happening across the UK, England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland. One of the things that really struck us was that this climate is such a shifty climate. Things keep changing, and there's not really a way to keep up with it. And if you are aware of what we do, you'll know that on our website, we've put our best thoughts on what you need to do to react to the laws in your country. We have that on our COVID page. We've given an outline of what's happening across the country and what it might mean for you. So if you're interested in nitty-gritty details on what to do in your country, in your particular context, that's definitely already out there. But we're here today to look at how we can manage this climate of constantly changing laws. I think no one's ever going to be on top of being up to date with the latest thing, because as we know, it changes from month to month, from week to week. Sometimes it feels like from hour to hour. And we're here to talk about how to manage that side of things. Kate, would you like to jump in here and just set the scene for our viewers here today?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, Leah, the whole point of this session is not to go into the nitty-gritty detail of what's, the government guidelines for each country. It's more about recognising that, it's still ongoing and it's still tough. What I do have as a kind of update is a sort of flavour or a sort of bit of a description about what's going on in each of the shed landscapes, if you like, in each country. So obviously today is the first day of national lockdown for England. And on the whole, based on the kind of rules and regulations, most sheds will have had to close again in England. And it's a very difficult decision. It's a very unique decision for each shed, but that seems to be the majority. So all sheds in England now pretty much are closed. The same is also in Ireland. I spoke to the Irish Men's Shed Association, and they're in a similar position to us in England, which is that until the 4th of December, they're in Tier 5, which is the equivalent of a national lockdown. In terms of Wales are actually in a position of coming out of a slightly lesser strict lockdown. So there are some sheds planning on how they might be able to reopen safely. But again, at the moment, most sheds are closed. And in Scotland, having chatted with our shed ambassador in Scotland, he sort of highlighted that even though there's been many phases to the Scottish lockdown situation, there's been one consistent rule about the fact that any groups meeting indoors really have to be from no more than 2 family groups, which makes it near impossible for sheds to be able to open up. So most sheds in Scotland have been locked down since March. So yeah, it's pretty bleak in terms of sheds, finding their feet again at the moment. So yeah.
Brilliant. I think also what we're trying to do is we are here to hear from you as well. So if you're logged into your YouTube account or Facebook account, you will be able to type in some questions, your thoughts, your ideas. As we stipulated before, this is a very informal chat session. We're not intending for this to be definitive in any way. We just thought we should address what's happening and just really touch base and shedder to shedder, just be real, open and honest about what is happening. And the fact is we're all really going through it. And there are 2 levels to that. There is the shed level. If you're a shed leader of any kind, there's a lot of responsibility on your shoulders and you're having to make decisions constantly about what to do, how to keep up. Equally, if you're a shedder, you know what it's like to be cut off from your group. If you're isolating, you're shielding, you know what it's like to no longer have that support network. And for us, what we hope that at the end of today will have happened is that you will be aware of what resources you can access if you weren't already from the UK Men's Sheds Association and other places as a shedder and as a shed leader. And equally, we just want to empathize and say, we're going through it just like you are. Who knows what Christmas is going to look like? Are you planning for Christmas? Have you given up on Christmas? All that sort of thing. That's what we're here to do. We're just chatting. It's not a panel. We're not expecting to do anything really stiff. And it's your turn, But I think Kate and I will try to move it along if we think it needs it. Okay, so I'm just going to slip into the background here and allow everybody to just let's have this chat. Lockdown is happening now, hard lockdown, different things happening across the country, across the home countries. What are we making of it? Kate, do you want to kick us off with the personal piece?
Oh gosh. It's for me personally, I think looking at the shed movement, I think the most frustrating thing for me for looking at the shed movement is the culture of sheds is to problem solve their way out of problems, right? And this one it's really hard to keep motivated to try and problem solve out of this because you effectively your hands are tied, right? The decision is made for you, and that therefore the focus has to shift from being practically resourceful in supporting each other shoulder to shoulder and I guess looking in different directions. For me personally, I mean, I have to say that I feel quite lucky, really. I've recently bought a home and we've got plenty of renovations to do. But the irony of it is my job was very outward focusing and I loved going out and meeting the shedders. That was what's really inspired me, and all of that's gone away. And there's something about Zoom that just will never replace that face-to-face contact and the banter and just the enjoyment of having a cup of tea and a biscuit with these amazing guys that are out there doing stuff. So my job has really, really changed personally.
Yeah, I would agree with that actually, Kate, because I know that I work with colleagues. We support sheds across the Humber, and I think the best bit was about going out, meeting people, and just usually spending a lot of money in the sheds, but for the things that they're making. But just the enthusiasm and the banter, and just it was just the best part of the job. And whilst we've been meeting with the sheds online, and that's been really positive, it's not the same. It's not the same, but it's absolutely better than nothing.
Yeah.
I had an event happen this morning. I won't use their real names, but we had a short Zoom call amongst a few shedders just to touch base and see how people were feeling. And one of my shedders emailed back and said, "Look, I can't make it today. I'm tied up. And by the way, Dave, his wife has been in hospital for a few days, so he won't be joining the call either." Anyway, so the call opened up and Dave came in and said, "I'm really pleased that you're running this Zoom session today because my wife had an accident and I'm desperate to talk to people." So I guess for me, the issue is don't make an assumption that you're the same as everyone else. Everyone is struggling, and we just have to reach out and not make assumptions, because you never know how people are going to feel or how they're feeling or what's going on. And as it turns out, the guy who called in was delighted that we were hearing about him and his hard times. And he's bless him, he's our oldest shedder. He's over 90 years old. So tough times.
I'll speak from a professional and a bit of a personal perspective. I think it was just a few days ago, I was tweeting to encourage everybody and saying to everyone, sheds are still open. Don't give up on us. We're all out here still. And it was a wonderful message. And pretty much 2 days later, it was like, yeah, no, let's take that down. And, and that's sort of been what it is. It's a lot. I know that it can be very confusing, and the temptation is just to go, what on earth are the government doing? And you can try to keep up with it, but it's very difficult, I'm sure, for all involved. On a personal note, I have a young family. I have an 8 and a 10-year-old, and they've just been indoors the entire time, and their poor mom, who homeschools them, is having to try and just cope with that. And I know you can tell when things are getting pretty stressful, and you try to find time out to do different things, but it's very difficult. And one of the things I was sharing earlier here is that I think as men, we never like to think about things like, how are you feeling? That's a very woman-y type of thing to say, of what are your emotions like? And I was reading just up on the issue of anxiety and stress and all that sort of thing. And it was really funny as they listed all these symptoms of anxiety. I could see that a lot of them were things that I've been through myself, but I would never think of those things to be anxiety. So, for example, things like insomnia. I've just haven't been sleeping for the longest time, but I just think, oh, well, it's just the weather or something like this. And then you'll look at comfort eating. I'm noticing that I've been scrabbling about just looking for things to eat all the time, more than I normally do. And it's and conversely, my wife has been not eating. Her appetite is totally gone. And it's all these little things that you wouldn't think that you're struggling, but it kind of, you might be. So that's my personal little account there.
Yeah, this is something which goes way beyond just the lockdown, but the uncertainty of having things you can't control is it's anxiety inducing. And so, of course, the thing is try and control the things you can control. And what works for me is combining both routine and new experiences. So the routine is generally something like, running on a Tuesday and a Tuesday and a Thursday morning. So that's something I have control over. I can decide to go out, whatever the weather. The other thing I tend to do, because I like repurposing stuff, and because I like upcycling, afternoon TV, there's Money for Nothing on BBC One every day. And in fact, I think it's on now as we're standing talking now. I think it's on every day. and it's just brilliant the way they take things and create new things out of them. So, you know, it's like you sort of can build in 1 or 2 fixed points in your day or your week. And then, because looking any further than about sort of a week ahead, I think we just don't know. So from my family point of view, I've got a daughter up in Sheffield. Now, we don't know whether we're going to meet over Christmas, but we certainly haven't made any plans, because you can be sure that whatever you've planned is probably not going to happen. And so we have planned things further ahead in the hope that come sort of spring 2021. So we put 1 or 2 like markers into the calendar to look forward to. But I think we're just living much more on a day-to-day basis and looking for things that we can sort of fairly well control. And I think it also helps put things in perspective, because what's happening on the other side of the world, or what's happening the other end of the country, we really can't do a lot about it. So so I think we have to try and build in a little bit of routine, but also have new experiences. And at the weekend, I watched somebody taking a tree down, a very big tree down, and helped. So I learned quite a lot about that as well. So, yeah.
Yes, it's true, Jeff. It is like the hokey cokey in and out.
Really painful version.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is the anxiety levels. I mean, on a personal level, I find it's very distracting. So I find that increasingly, you're going from one room to another and go, no, why am I in this room? I think when you're anxious, I think things are very distracting, and so you boil a kettle for a cup of tea and then don't make the cup of tea and things like that.
But it's subtle build of anxiety as well, isn't it? You don't actually realise, because it's so sort of small, it'll build up over days and days and days. You realise, oh, actually, hang on a second, I'm not as okay as I thought I was sometimes. It does feel, lockdown for me has been a real roller coaster. And interestingly, having been on my own all day with my partner, because my partner's in construction, so he has been allowed to go out and work. Because I've not been going out and meeting people, actually my own loneliness and isolation has increased, because I am just on my own all day. And even though you have Zoom connections, it's still a bit of a struggle, sort of in the afternoon particularly, because you can feel a bit lost. Yeah.
I found that one of the things I found during the first lockdown was that although we were supposed, we had that opportunity to go out and go for a walk, I didn't, and I got eventually, so I just didn't go out at all. I just stayed in all the time, and I'd wander around the garden, but I wasn't. I mean, I live in a village. There's nice areas to walk around, but I just stopped doing it altogether, and it's been a real effort I've had to make an effort to get back out. And I used to go to park run every Saturday, and I missed that.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I'm not happy to do it on my own. Don't feel confident doing it on my own. So I've missed all those social connections as well. So things that I would turn up because I knew friends would turn up on a Saturday morning, and actually the running was secondary. It was the people. And I don't think I realised that until recently. It's not the running, it's the people that I was missing from that.
I think it's interesting you say that, Jacky, because when we were talking earlier on, we were talking about the concept of the shed, and actually the heart of the shed is about the connection with others, isn't it? And that's the challenge, is that when your hands are tied, and you can even speaking to Jeff earlier on in Dalbeattie, and he was saying we can do activities at home, but it's actually the connection stuff that we're really, really after. And that idea of just giving people a phone call, because quite a lot of shedders aren't up for Zoom, are they? They're not up for kind of technical stuff like this.
No, we've found that really difficult with the sheds that we support in North Links, that in the Humber area, that there are some sheds that are really they've got 2 or 3 people that are really able to set things up and to use the systems, and then there are other people that would like to, not sure how to, and then there are other people that just don't want to. And I must say,
but Andy just made a good point. He said, be intentional about making the connections. People have just got to take a deep breath and connect with others. And for me, the telephone calls are really important. The number of times I've phoned people and you're on the phone for 25 minutes, half an hour, and they say, thank you so much for calling, and it doesn't, you just got to pick the phone up and do it. And the same with Zoom. We've, with our Zoom project here down in Frome, we've had 6 or 7 new first-time users of Zoom, and it takes 10 to 15 minutes to get connected. But you can do it, but be intentional, get on it and do it, And I mean, and I always say on the phone calls is always check who other people are talking to, because then you get a kind of third-hand connection as well, and ask them to phone some other people that maybe are a bit isolated. Just pick the phone up and talk to people. We love it.
I was talking to somebody the other day about telephone trees, and I was thinking we should actually revitalize telephone trees, because it's an efficient way of reaching numbers, and people feel a part of something, they're involved with it. And I suppose a telephone tree is just the old version of a Zoom call or whatever, or an email circular. And I'm thinking maybe if there doesn't already exist, there should be some sort of dummies guide for setting up a telephone tree, because it might tap into people whose skills are more to do with conversation on phones rather than going on Zoom, because I know a lot of people are not confident about going on Zoom, for whatever reason. So
the other thing, Chris, is interesting about Zoom, somebody said, is that actually it kind of stays, for some people it's not shoulder to shoulder, because it's very much about eye contact, and it's quite it can, for some people, one of my very dear friends finds Zoom quite anxiety inducing, because all of a sudden she's got to be completely tuned into that person's face, whereas actually that shoulder to shoulder, a phone can feel a little bit softer.
It's really interesting, that, isn't it? Because if you're in a car and you're driving along somewhere, you have a conversation and it can flow a lot better than when you're actually sat and you're trying to have that conversation face to face. So I think that's very true. We were having a meeting with some sheds this morning, and they're looking at keeping in touch with their members through telephone calls. There will be a bit of Zoom and WhatsApp video calls, things like that. But there were some of the sheds are taking it in turns, and they're buddying up, and they're finding out who's closest to who to actually create those connections. But in other sheds, there is one person taking on that responsibility. And I think what we were talking about this morning is it's important to actually make sure the person who's doing the telephoning is okay as well, because if you're having a good chat and you're taking on all these concerns that somebody needs to maybe give you that time afterwards just to talk about it, or else you can just carry that with you, can't you? So I think you've got to look after yourself while you're looking after other people as well. So but the buddying system was quite interesting. One shed in particular, they've set up that buddy system, so they all know that they've got 2 or 3 people that they're responsible for calling, and everyone was saying what a difference it's made. Just as you were saying, Patrick, what a difference it makes. People are just so thrilled to get that call, and whether it just be a call that they'll do at any time, or if it's a planned call, and people really, really appreciate it.
And the other thing, don't be disappointed if you leave a voicemail and they don't come back to you. You don't know what's going on in their life. No. I mean, I had one this morning where someone came back to me and said, "I'm sorry, I've been out of touch, but my favourite aunt just died, and we had to go off and do so and so and so and so and so and so." So even though I find myself sometimes getting a bit frustrated, you've really got to kind of let go of that, and just, you have no idea what is going on, especially during these kind of lockdowns. You should, be tolerant and patient. It's not a particular strength of mine, but you do have to work on it, and I encourage people to do that.
I can appreciate some of the frustrations that some members having, because they've worked so hard to open the sheds up again, haven't they? There's been so much effort put in, getting all the risk assessments in place, putting the tape down, getting the PPE, getting the signage up. All of that work there's just been a tremendous effort. But what I've found this time is that preparation's all done. So when they do reopen again, they're ready. Yes. It's all in place. So, it's not wasted. All that hard work is not wasted at all.
And actually, Jacky, some sheds are putting some good funding applications in as well. It's time, it's the time, because there's actually, we were talking this morning, actually there are pots of money out there if you find them, the right ask and the ways of doing that. I don't know if you guys have got anything to say on that, because you're a bit closer to fundraising, aren't you, Patrick and Jacky and Lee and Chris as well, probably.
I mean, I would say the same thing as I just did about Shedders. don't forget that a lot of these grant giving bodies are all working remotely from home. So a lot of these people are, they're isolated. And so my advice is that if you see a grant and you think, well, I don't know whether I go for that or not, if it's a phone number, phone them up and ask them and say, hey, look, can I apply for this grant, or is it, we're not this particular requirement, we don't quite meet it, is that okay? And my experience is that if you have the conversations with people like that, that they appreciate it too, because they're just humans. They may be a grant giver, but they're just people who are in the same kind of boat as everyone else. But so there are quite a few. My advice is get on the phone to them and talk to them. Don't rely on the pre-formatted form that you have to fill in anyway, but get an advance steer on it.
Yeah, completely agree, because the funding advisors are fantastic. Actually, they want you to have some money, and the more you can chat with them and talk about your projects, they help you to shape it. So they're incredibly supportive.
Yeah.
So I'm in the Humber area, most of the sheds have accessed some kind of funding, and there's been quite a lot about, and still are quite a few different pots around. But there's been some real successes in drawing down funds, because it's such a difficult time when you can't. Most sheds trade, don't they? They make things, they sell things, they get donations, and it's generating income is difficult. And if members, one shed I was talking to this morning, they're not charging memberships at this time, so they're not generating that income, which is great for the members, but it's a worrying time. I heard from a shed this week that was really concerned how it was going to pay the rent when it becomes due. But the great thing is that we talked about it, so we can actually start to support them to look at potential funding opportunities. So
and in some levels, sheds are in a great position, because sheds are going to be a crucial part of recovery. I mean, they are absolutely exactly what COVID-19 has taken away. It's that community connection, and not on top of that, they're sustainable on the whole as well. So why wouldn't you want to give money to help support something that will eventually be able to stand on its own legs again? Yeah, absolutely.
Questions come up here. Oh, sorry. Someone said sheds don't need to be closed. I don't know whether we want to touch a little bit on the different. I know there's different sheds represented here and different ideas.
So that's Sarah. Hi, Sarah. Sarah's from Essex Shed Network. We noticed we didn't know whether to go down this route, because initially the kind of feeling was that all sheds, based on a kind of moral, line about the fact that sheds on the whole need to be closed because of a national lockdown. However, we are aware that there is, Patrick, you might be able to say a little bit more, there's this number 15, isn't there, about these kind of charitable duties and or work-related activities. So I don't know, Jacky and Patrick and anybody else, do you want to, if you were able to say a little bit about how you've interpreted that for sheds?
Well, in Frome, we've interpreted it as the sheds should be closed, and to some extent on the basis that the government guidelines do say everyone over 60 needs to be very careful about who they mix with. And I think strictly, if you look at the conditions of unless the charitable service is specifically addressing certain areas which are marked as exceptions, which include alcohol-related issues, transgender issues and domestic abuse. But nevertheless, to be fair, the sheds that I've got experience of are so well planned in terms of PPE, in terms of social distancing, wearing of masks, cleaning of tools and cleaning of everything else. They're much better than the average shop or supermarket. I go to the supermarket and people are handling, fruit and veg in front of me and then putting it back on the shelf. And, that doesn't happen in the sheds in my experience. So I understand that there are sheds that might make a decision to do that. I just think that we need to be very careful with this in terms of we do need to help with the lockdown to try and free up Christmas is the way I see it, and to protect the NHS. But, with England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, tier plus, you name it. It's complicated times.
Yeah, and I think on some levels, going back to the fact that it's up to the shed to make that decision on whether or not they genuinely think they can open safely. So, you know, the guidance is out there that on the whole, it looks like sheds probably should be closed. There are obviously lines within the guidance that perhaps show that there may well be an exemption from that. But again, it needs to be really carefully considered because, you know, like Patrick said, that the PPE and the kind of the processes need to be there to make sure that everybody is as safe as possible. Yeah.
I mean, I think some of the Shed Association advice is if you've got a question, check it with your local authority.
Yeah.
My experience is that the Director of Public Health for your county is very reactive as well. So I would check with them as well because and then you'll need to share your risk analysis, I would think, in order to get that kind of approval.
Yes, maybe also just to pipe in at that point to say, if you're in the chat, we are seeing the comments that you're sending through. Part of the reason we're having this informal chat is just from shedder to share ideas and thoughts and questions. So if you know something, share it, and we wanted to tap that. What Kate and I will be doing is collating all the things that come up here so that if there's something that we need to incorporate and share with others, we can do that. If there's something that we could do more of as the association or shedders, we want to know about that as well. We're coming here and saying, you know, we don't have all the answers. So we definitely want to hear from you. As far as how to react to what's happening in your area, if you're not sure what all the rules mean for your area, UKMSA have produced, by UKMSA I mean UK Men's Sheds Association, I think I should just say that. We have produced a document about all of that, and there's downloadable materials that you can take a look at your leisure after this that explain what's happening in your region, and you may want to use that as you decide which way to go. So that's another one of the reasons we're here, because we have resources that we think will be really useful to you as a shed leader or just as a shedder in your own personal life.
I mean, I think the other thing, Leo, you know, my advice always go to the Men's Shed Association, find a shed, click on a shed, and phone them up and say, "What are you guys doing?" You know, because you get to talk to other people. And my experience is that very few problems that sheds hit have not been hit by somebody else. So the chances are, if you ring up and say, "Hey, this is my problem or my question, what do you think?" You know, they often other sheds will have an answer, or they'll say, "I don't know, but I think the shed down the road is doing something about that. Why don't you call them?" And it just makes you feel less lonely, less isolated. And there's a lot of good ideas out there already, and there's some fantastic sheds doing some brilliant stuff.
Yes, Patrick, it reminded me when I first joined the association and I went around and met lots of sheds and lots of ambassadors. It was quite clear that everybody was really good at certain things and then very steep learning curves. And I just thought, if you put all the shedders in the room, you just solve the world. You just solve everything.
I think the other thing, Kate, is that, I mean, we take part in a Somerset group which is does work with all kinds of community groups, you know, and there's about 7 or 8 sheds that join that one. And the person who runs that particular Zoom call says, "I love talking to you guys in the sheds because you're all so positive and get on and get things done." She said, "You know, there's lots of groups we work with who are not as positive as sheds. So I think sometimes we beat ourselves up, you know, we beat ourselves up too much, because I think, you know, the outward view is a very positive one in terms of what sheds do and how they address problems and how they sort things out, you know. So we just need to keep that up.
Don't you think that's because shedders are sort of naturally problem solvers? Yeah. I mean, they tend to be creative people and usually enjoy making things, mending things, or whatever. And I think it goes with a certain mindset which says, if something isn't working, I'm going to find out why it's not working and I'm going to try and fix it. And you can apply that sort of process across all sorts of different areas in life. And I mean, I experienced myself during the first lockdown the delight and excitement of creating very simple recipes and looking for a minimum number of ingredients. And it was usually something that ended up sweet and sticky at the end of it. And I can't just convey the excitement I got following a very simple recipe and producing something that everybody seemed to like. And there's a thing called a lantern tray bake. So look it up. It's very easy, it's lovely. But the point is, like we were saying earlier, once you've made your lantern tray bake, you chop it up and you take it round to people. So not only are you benefiting, but they're benefiting. And I see that John earlier was saying about comfort eating. And let's face it, we've got to do things to reward ourselves. And if it's eating a nice sticky, chocolatey,
Stop it. Stop it.
I think, Chris, what you don't realize is that you're enabling Jacky and I. I think we don't quite make it to the taking it around to people part, you see.
We want the whole tray bake. We don't want one piece.
Yeah.
Because I read somewhere recently that when you're homeschooling children, baking is contributes to the science and maths agenda. So you're helping. You're helping with
it's all part of the cause. Yeah.
Patrick, did you see something about drinking as well, though?
Well, yes. I heard this joke about if you're homeschooling your kids, then you should start drinking at 10 o'clock in the morning. Oh, and if you're not homeschooling your kids, you should start drinking at 10 o'clock in the morning. But I think I've probably been drinking more than I would normally do during the lockdown. But I had found myself reading the government guidelines on drinking, which I could quote to you, but it's basically along the lines of everyone has got individual responsibilities to decide what they're going to drink, how much they're going to drink, and when they're going to drink. And the government guidelines are there to help. I think is what they say.
Basically.
Following them to the letter. We had food is a great connector anyway, isn't it? And I think that's probably one of the things that we've been missing about getting together and going out and eating and doing things like that. And while we were all able to what was the government initiative to get us all out eating? I've forgotten what it was called. That's it. I think we all went a bit mad then, didn't we, going out? But again, it just really demonstrates that we want to get out and connect with people. And I know that for some of our sheds, we've got one shed that's near a nursery, and the nursery brings in biscuits that they've made to offer them to the shedders, which is absolutely lovely. It creates some lovely relationships. So people need those. But even now in the shed, they've got pictures that the children have painted for them that are up in the windows, which again, it just shows those connections between different groups in the community. And just a brief story of something that happened this morning on our Zoom, our Reliance call, was that one shed had to move during lockdown. They lost their premises and they had to move during the first lockdown. They moved into new premises, and they're just starting to get all the work done to it. So they've worked so hard. They've moved out, they've moved in, they've got lots and lots of work to do. But now they're looking at not being able to continue to do that work because there's not enough of them to do it. And the other guys just said, as soon as this is over, we'll all be around to help you. All the other sheds, we'll be around there to help you. And I just think, what a fabulous spirit. It's fantastic, isn't it? So I think the benefits of communicating, keeping in touch and asking other sheds and talking to each other. We connected with you, Patrick, didn't we, when we were setting up the virtual shed project?
We had that was great because we had 15 shedders from Humberside, didn't we? Chatting to the guy down in Frome. Yeah, that was fantastic, really.
Really appreciated it.
Just a shout out, because actually there are now 12 shed networks around the country. Kent, Essex, Humberside, Norfolk, North Yorkshire, Dumfries and Galloway. West Sussex is trying to get off the ground. There's the Isle of Wight, Southern Men's Shed Network around Hampshire, Northern Home Counties, and Thames Valley as well, which is down near Basingstoke in Oxfordshire. So there's a few networks, so it's worth just, if you fall into any of those areas, we'll be putting up a list about those shed networks and the people that you can contact, because I think the shed networks have been really great at doing quite innovative stuff on Zoom. I know sheds have been doing it within their own members, but actually some networks have been doing it between sheds as well, haven't they? Doing all sorts of. You've been doing like show and tell sessions and having guest speakers. I know Men's Sheds Cymru have been having all sorts of guest speakers coming and talking to sheds in Wales. But yeah, Jacky, I don't know if you want to say anything about some of the stuff that you were doing during the last lockdown on Zoom.
Me, sorry. We were holding meetings regularly with the trustees just to and talking about different roles. So we've done bits of training that any of the trustees can. So on what the trustee's role, the chairperson's role. We've got some virtual sheds under development at the moment, and in actual fact, we were asking some of the shedders if they wanted to do some cookery videos this morning. Very well received, and we were also talking about horticulture. There's a bit of competition going on with that, and some of the guys were going to video themselves making things in their own sheds that they would then share on the website so other people can see them. So I think people are getting quite used to using online systems and exploring and trying different things, which I think is really exciting. I know that there's a network that have regular virtual coffee mornings, get-togethers, and people can just drop in and out whenever they're available. But at least they're there; they know they can go, can't they? On a Thursday morning, I think it is. So
that'd be Nan Shed, I believe. Yes.
Yeah.
Is it?
And then as Kate was saying, the Men's Sheds Cymru have a Zoom room that they do weekly as well, where people can. I like where we're going, because I think we're now sliding into opportunities that exist for people, and the things that are coming up in the future. Do we want to touch a little bit about things people can look forward to, as we are talking about ways people can make the most out of this crazy climate?
We got the radio Shed Happens, even when you're self-isolating, brackets
yes.
again. Yeah, before it's Gump that, but so we're looking for some music, people to send music, and we had a load of music sent in to us when we were running back in March and April and May. So if you've got any musicians out there, or people, especially people who've either adapted existing songs or new songs, then send it in to us at Shed Happens, or one word, at ukmsa.org.uk. We go out, first show is going out next Wednesday. Still in planning, because it's all fairly on the hurry up, but it'll go out about 10 o'clock and then be available online on demand via the UK MSA website. So do be in touch if you've got ideas for that. That would be great.
Brilliant. Kate, would you like to say anything about the regional networks? I know you said a bit about that. Ambassadors and regional networks seems like something people could really plug into.
Yeah, I think one thing I'll be asking ambassadors to do, although they don't know it yet, so this is a live briefing. But towards Christmas, I think another kind of shed call round, just like, doing what we've talked about here, which is picking up the phone and practice what you preach. So I think that's going to be a focus, and so hopefully if you've got an ambassador in your county, you're likely to get a call from somebody who's a volunteer for UKMSA. And just to say again, we'll put up a list of the regional shed networks that exist, because I think they have been really supportive in kind of holding those conversations, especially when sheds were trying to navigate their way into a place of opening safely, in England anyway. We'll put up a list of those, because it's really great to connect with them.
Let me share this. It's hot off the press. This is from our CEO. It's this just in, as it were, and it's just to do with how sheds can look after themselves as regards PPE. So I'm just going to read it. It is with great pleasure that we can announce support from the National Lottery Communities Fund in England to provide PPE for all English sheds. In much the same way that funding was secured from the National Lottery in Wales, we also secured funding from the English Lottery. In Wales, we were able to work with Men's Sheds Cymru to assist in sourcing the PPE they've already received, which is testament to our working together. This offer will be extended to member sheds in Scotland and Northern Ireland. So just so you know, I know it's the beginning of the hard lockdown as of today, but plans are in motion to make sure that people have whatever they need if they're going to be staying open. And if I think it's also expected that there's usually someone at your shed, even if your shedders aren't there. And that's something that you can definitely tap into, and that's new. We know many of you will have gotten the bottles of hand sanitizer as well. So from our aspect, we're trying to do everything we can to be supportive. I might throw in a few other little things. I know that UK Men's Sheds Association have a little something that we're trying to plan around Christmas time. So that's to look forward to as well, just some way of engaging us as shedders. I think it's so important that we come together and help one another and just be shoulder to shoulder online, as it were. And while we're on this online thing, we do the resources as well that I wanted to share. I think what we'll do at the end of this stream, we have a bunch of resources that we'd like to share with you about the various levels, whether you're a shed leader or whether you're an individual shedder who's no longer managing to get down to the shed. We feel that there's a lot of resources you can benefit from. Some you may already know of. If you're a member shed, you should be aware of what's happening, but some things may be new to you. And what we'll do is we'll continue the chat, and then towards the end, we will share all the things that speak to the kind of conversation that we've been having. We've talked about mental health. Some of you will be concerned about shed security. You know, sometimes, I think in the last lockdown, while we were off, people were nicking things in the sheds. So there's resources about that. If you are worried about your mental health, there's things about that. If you're worried about your physical health, if you are concerned about anything really, we have some kind of resource, I think, that we can direct you to. Do let us know as well if there are things that you would like us to look at. But yeah, I'll let the conversation flow a bit more. But just to let you know, if you're wondering where we're going, at the end, we're going to share a bunch of resources that you can use. And when we show them, you won't be able to download them from watching this, but they will be put onto our website in the next day or so that you can go on there and maybe download a resource or just click onto a resource that opens a lot of opportunities that you can share with other people for your shed or use for yourself.
I mean, I think, Leo, too, the other thing is that there's quite a few art and photography type exhibitions, competitions going on at the moment. I know in our area there's a charity that is asking for donations for artwork to be sold to raise money for that charity. And so I would urge people to do that too, because there's loads of, you know, at the Zoom shed meeting with this morning, we had somebody who we just said, you know, what have you been doing this week? And he pulls up this picture that he's been painting, you know, out of used coffee grounds. It's all sepia, you know. But so there's all kinds of stuff like that going on, and sometimes people just need a bit of encouragement to share their photographs or their pictures, you know, and it encourages the others too, if you like, because people say, well, I can do that as well. So I really would ask people to just, you know, push those things out there and don't be disappointed if nothing happens. You know, you may be having an effect you don't know about.
I think it's been quite inspiring actually to read that so many people are getting a lot out of Zoom calls. I mean, I know we talked about some people it doesn't appeal, but actually I was under the impression that maybe people were getting Zoom fatigue, but based on the feed that's coming through from Facebook, actually it looks like people are still really getting a lot of value for that. And Patrick, you mentioned earlier on that there are some guidelines about throwing a Christmas party online. Fancy dress.
I would love to try and get a real Zoom party going around Christmas time. And some of the advice is, you know, give all kinds of different people different start times. So they turn up in dribs and drabs and they have to introduce each other. Insist on fancy dress, you know, and also, you know, make sure that backgrounds are suitable and seasonal. But I think there's all kinds of ideas there to celebrate all kinds of things. And I think we just need to be a little bit more extroverted and outward looking rather than inward looking. But there you go.
And I keep banging away about it every year, but it is Movember this year. And why aren't at least people who are able to, why can't they at least well, if you can't have a moustache,
oh, I like that. That's for me. That is, I'm not doing very well over here.
Yeah, but why aren't we sharing progress photos on our moustaches as they grow? So yeah.
Some of the Humber sheds, they share a private Facebook group, so they're actually really pretty good at sharing stories and ideas on there, and they often show off the things that they're making over the summer. Honestly, the gardens that were being redeveloped was incredible, but it's inspirational and it's something to look at, and there's usually some funny comments on there as well, but it's just keeping people connected. And again, this morning they were talking about WhatsApp groups and how, you know, get everybody on the WhatsApp group, and people just post a funny story, a joke or something like that, or a cartoon, and it just lightens the mood, really, doesn't it?
I've just noticed a question actually from Phil Wheatley about support available for National Lottery for 40k grant to build a bespoke shed. Something that I've been thinking for a while is there are a number of sheds around the country that are shed people that have been looking at building their own shed. Some have already built it, and some are in the process of looking at how that might work. And I've been saying for a while we should probably bring those guys together to have a chat with each other to really understand, because I'm sure there's loads of learning curves within that group of people who've already done it, and those people who are going through it. That could really learn from each other. So I'll take that away as an action, Phil. I've already got a list of about 6 or 7, and I'll see if I can bring that group together.
I think that would be hugely useful. I know that the premises are the most difficult things to find, aren't they, when you're setting up your shed? And they can be the most difficult. And sometimes it is about, well, we've found a piece of land, but I think that would be useful to a lot of people, a lot of groups.
Yeah, because all the expertise is out there in the shed movement. It's just
Warminster, not Warminster. There's one in Dorset that's just managed to get a £40,000 grant, I think, and they're building 2 sheds on church property.
Yeah.
And somebody from the repair shed was saying there will be a lot of empty shops around, and I know landlords are notoriously difficult, but I've always had this vision of sheds on the high street as being the public face of the shed that then sends you off to the more less accessible location maybe. And if anybody knows the Edinburgh Remakery, it's absolutely fantastic. Look it up on the internet. The Edinburgh Remakery, where they have a combination of a workshop, a shop front, and training in things like repairs and things like that. Just fantastic. So maybe we can look out for friendly landlords with empty high street premises.
Chris's spin on that was the idea that if you had a shed in the town centre, then it would be a man crash, so the women could sort of
yeah.
They can get woodwork.
Come pick them up at the end of the day.
I love that.
Right, we have 5 minutes left on the clock. Now I'm stuck for whether to be a stickler and try to. Shall I just run through some of the resources available that people might be able to find?
Go for it,
then I'll just whittle through these. I've got a little list here just to keep myself on target. So for those of you who may be finding that you need a community, you might find that it's challenging and you need people to talk to. There is a really great community over at Click. It's a website called Click, CLIC, and as you can see at the bottom there, it's endorsed by a lot of really good people. So it's a nice, trustworthy online place to go if you're struggling with any mental health issues. Do go on over there. There's people that can empathize, people who are going through similar things to yourself, and they're happy to chat about it and give what advice they have. That is going to be on the website. We'll give you a link to that. Some other help that's available is the Silver Line, are the only place where there's a 365-day, 24/7 chat line. So you can call, if you prefer to be on the phones than online, call the people over at Silver Line and they'll talk to you if you just need someone to chat to and be friendly with, or if you have issues. This is a place you can definitely take advantage of. So if loneliness is the thing that you're dealing with, please give the Silver Line a call. If health is the thing that as an individual that you're needing to keep up with, there's Nuffield Health, and what's great about them is they'll show you exercises. If you're in that shielding isolation bracket, there's things you can do at home just using basic furniture, and it's not going to be, it's not going to be John Wick, where it's like super aggressive. Joe Wick, sorry. It's something you'll be able to keep up with and stay fit. NHS 111, if you didn't already know, there's a website for this and a number. If you are starting to worry about your health, but sometimes as shedders, we sort of think to ourselves, oh, well, I'll be all right. It'll be fine. It'll go. Don't do that. Go on NHS 111. There you can actually type in your symptoms and the website takes you along. And if something's crazily off, it'll recommend that you see someone, or it will be able to put your mind at ease as to what's going on. So definitely take advantage of that if you're worried about your physical well-being. Age UK have some incredible resources around online safety. We'll put the links up on our website. because we're going into lockdown, we're all therefore going to be online more and more and more. I think that's just how it works. So that online is a crazy place to be. You're right to be skeptical. There are scammers out there sometimes and things can go wrong. But if you go on the Age UK resources that we'll provide for you on our website, you will be able to navigate everything from web use to phone use and feel that you're safe and not getting taken advantage of. Equally, if something has gone wrong and you feel like there might have been a scam, there are people that you can speak to and they'll help you with that. Mankind is a website for men. This is a little bit of a taboo subject in some circles about domestic violence, but the stats are showing that 1 in 3 men experience domestic violence. And we know that especially at this time of lockdown, relationships get a bit frayed. And as guys, normally, perhaps you don't want to talk about it, or perhaps you think, oh, it's nothing, and you just keep living through some of these things. But we'd encourage you to get over to Mankind. It's all very confidential, and just go through their website and see if any of the things they're talking about apply to your situation, and you may get someone to speak to and talk you through. These are tough times, guys. Let's not be too proud. Let's go over there and see what we can do. From the UK Men's Sheds Association side, one of the things that we've been manning phones recently. I've been on the phones because our membership support officer has been poorly, and it's been interesting to hear some of the questions that we're getting through from shedders about things that we are already providing and have been for a long time. If you are wanting to stay connected, if you're a shed leader or you're just at home and you don't know what's going on, definitely subscribe to our newsletter. We have a newsletter called Shoulder to Shoulder. It goes out monthly, and we talked earlier about funding and fundraising. Every newsletter goes out with fundraising information that you can tap into right away, from small grants to really large grants that you can get for your shed. So please make sure you subscribe to our Shoulder to Shoulder. We'll put all the information again on the website. And it just keeps you abreast of what's happening across the UK with sheds as well. So if you're feeling a bit out there by yourself, please take advantage of that newsletter. Our last one has just come out, and you'll be seeing it doing its rounds on social media. Again, to do with COVID and all the things we've talked about, rules, what are the stipulations, where are we now? We have a page dedicated to that on our website. It's a COVID page. You can see it at the top of the website if you go there. And we constantly update that with the latest information that we've got and try to contextualize it to you so that you know what you can do in your area, whether you're in Wales, Scotland, or Ireland. And where we don't know the answers, we've told you where to go. We've signposted you to people who can answer some of those more intricate questions. So please take advantage of that page. We update it frequently. It will tell you everything you need to know about COVID, lockdown, etc. Here are some of the things to do with being a UK MSA member. Some of you, I saw in the chat, someone was asking, how do we get involved with men's sheds? Well, there's lots of different ways to do that. You can support us by donating and giving equipment to your local shed. You can, if you're a person with a shed and you haven't become a charity yet, or you feel a bit isolated, you can become a UK MSA member and you get a bunch of benefits for it. You might actually already have these benefits, but you might be in a situation where a shed leader signed up for these benefits, but you're not aware of it. Maybe they've now left, or maybe they just forgot to keep paying attention. Just be aware that if you become a member, it's just £24 a year. You get access to a massive collection of resources for sheds, from managing a shed to income generation, to sharing tools, insurance, health, all the kinds of things that we've been talking about here. You will get access to all those resources, and they're hidden behind the member area. So you won't see them on the website if you just go on. You'll see some, but there are some things you can only access by becoming a UK Men's Sheds Association member. You're going to have networks with sheds across the United Kingdom with support from all our staff and our team of ambassadors. So as Kate was speaking about earlier, there are other more experienced shedders. If you're a young shed or just a shed that's struggling to find its way, there are people there who've got loads of experience, years of experience and networks, and we can put you in touch with them and they will help you with whatever you're currently facing that you're struggling with. And that again is for that £24 a year. If you are a shedder, we didn't do it this year because of COVID, But we have a yearly, we have a Shed Festival. It's a really wonderful, massive place where all the brands come together, all the tool companies come together. Anyone who's anyone in the making space is there, and you have access to that free. Normally, you have to pay to get into that. You'd have that membership to get into National Shed Fest free. There are loads of discounts as well. We have deals with a lot of tool making companies. So if you're a shed leader and things are getting old and broken, or we don't have what we need, again, once you become a member, you will have lots of discounts with Triton Tools, Axminster, Shed Store, and more. And if you join the UK Men's Shed Association, you become part of the movement. You can figure out what's happening. You're helping the sheds to grow. Your shed will be on our website. When people come looking for websites, which is the #1 thing people do on our website, is look for sheds. So when you give us your details and people look for a shed in the region, your shed will automatically pop up and you can get new members that way. So we encourage you to consider becoming a Men's Shed, UK Men's Sheds Association member, so that you can be plugged into all these benefits that will help you through times like this. Just winding it up now. Again, we said about sheds. Some sheds we know have had things stolen from them while we've been on lockdown. We have recently gone into a partnership with the Smart Water Group, and they will give you a discount on certain services. This is all on our website, where you can get them to help you look after your shed at discounted prices. So if you're a shed leader, that's something that I'm sure you'll be interested in. And that's kind of it for the resources that I have now. If there are any questions that you've had, we'll be looking at those and trying to see how we can be of further service to you. I've said a lot. Would anyone else like to jump in? Has anything popped up in your mind while I was just going on and on?
And I guess I would just say that we're here with open ears. So if there are things that come up for you that you think, oh, that would be really helpful, not just for me, but for the wider shed movement, please let us know, because, you know, you guys are the experts out there on the ground as shed leaders and shedders. So, yeah, please do send us any recommendations or things that you find as well, because it's useful for us to be able to share that on a national level.
It's true.
Two things that I find useful. Well, one I was involved with, but one of them is the Action for Happiness project, and they put online. They have a lot of talks given from people all over the world on all sorts of different themes, including relationships and things like that. And they put on those talks, and there you can pay for them or you can have them free if you can't afford to pay. And they also put out a monthly calendar with actions you can take every day of the month, usually around a sort of a very general theme. So if you're stuck for ideas of things you can do to help your own health and well-being, they will come up with them. The other thing that I've compiled myself is over 200 suggestions for activities you can do from your home. I put them into 18 different blog posts. But if you Google Enterprise Essentials Happy at Home, that will take you to the right site. And there's loads of ideas there. So that's basically if you want things you can do while you're stuck at home.
Thanks for that.
I just want to say thank you to everybody that's tuned in as well, and to obviously, you know, Patrick and Jacky and Chris for giving us your time here, and everybody who's watching. Well done, everybody. You know, it is November the 5th, and we've made it through without any Houses of Parliament jokes or references.
The temptation is so strong, but and yes, any final words, guys?
Yeah, I think the thing that I just want to say is that we're just a step nearer to things getting back to normal. Every day we're just moving closer. You know, we're not going backwards, we're moving closer, aren't we? And I know that we've got these hitches along the way, but things will change again, and we need to hang on to that.
Yes. Stay positive.
Yeah.
And don't forget, Patrick will be doing Shed Happen soon. You'll want to get stuck into that to stay connected.
Yeah, Patrick, you say what? You know, have you got the idea of day and time and things like that yet?
Yeah, next Wednesday, the first one will go out live at 10 o'clock, and you can listen to that on Froome.fm listen now, but it'll be on the UK Men's Shed Association website very soon thereafter. We've got 3 or 4 sheds that are and shedded groups that are lining up to do that, and we've got a few international sheds. We've got Canada is going to come in and give us an update. The guy from Winnipeg is in the middle of a major outbreak down there, and Honolulu's much better. They'll be on the first show, so we get a few of those. We're also looking to get some people with success stories with regards to grant funding and getting grants and things like this, and some of the explanations about how that might happen. And we're also looking for shed stories. So be in touch. Shed happens, all one word, at ukmsa.org.uk. It'd be great. Do email us.
And just in case you're wondering, there is an email you can send your questions to, or any thoughts you have if you've watched this broadcast live or after the fact, because it's going to go out as soon as we're done. Feel free to email us at admin@ukmsa.org.uk with questions, thoughts, etc. And we want to take those on board and see if we can use those to help other shedders, yourselves, better. I guess it's sign out time. I never know how to sign out. Does anyone want to try? You guys are more experienced than I am. Go on, guys.
Sayonara.
Right then. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you guys for being on. Goodbye, everybody. Take care. Enjoy your lockdown.
Thank you.
Bye and good luck.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
thank you, Leo.
Bye.
Bye.